a rule in order to set the layout. So basically we have created a rule and we have named it as button details. And then as we are using the relative layout, we have specified relative layout, and inside the parameters of relative layout, we have basically set the parameters to wrap content. Now wrap content is used because we want to fit the layout in such a way that it wraps the content, that is, it wraps the widget which are specified into it. Now the next thing which we did is that basically we want to set the position of the button in center horizontally as well as the position of the button in the center vertically. So we have specified these two lines of code here, and then finally we have added this view, or we have added the button along with the button details to our layout. So now in order to check the output of our program, we save the code, and when we run it, as our emulator is already running, we select the running emulator and click OK. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and you could notice that the background color has been changed to blue, and also the button color is changed to green. And we could also notice that the button right here is set in the center horizontally as well as vertically. So basically we are successful in writing Java code in order to change the background color as well as the button color, and also we are successful in setting the button at the center position horizontally as well as vertically. So in this tutorial what we have learnt is that how you could use Java code in order to add properties to your widgets. So basically what we have done is that we have added the property of background color to the layout, as well as we have added the property of color to the button, and then finally we have added this piece of code right here, which is nothing but the button details, and it is used in order to basically specify the layout, and we have used this right over here in order to align the button horizontally and vertically in the center. So that's it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be learning how you could add more widgets to your application by typing some Java code. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll be learning about pixels and density independent pixels. So now in the previous tutorial we have created a basic simple layout which has a edit text, and we have named the edit text as username, and also we have the background which is designed by using the relative layout, and we also have a button on it. So basically in this tutorial what we are going to do is that we want to change the size of this edit text right over here. So now one thing which you could do in order to change the size of this is you could simply go here and you could just simply type in the username, which is nothing but the edit text name. So we could type username, and in order to set its width you could simply use the set width method. So we could have typed username dot set width, and it could have set the width for you. But the main issue with this method is that it only accepts the parameters in the pixels value. Now the major problem with using pixels in your Android application is that when you're running an application onto some different devices, so the thing is that every device has a different number of pixels onto its screen. So the thing is that the size of your widget depends upon the number of pixels your device has. So for example, if your device has a large number of pixels, then your widget is going to look small on it. So basically we want to avoid using pixels, and instead of using pixels we are going to go with the density independent pixels, which is also called as DIPs. Now DIP stands for density independent pixels, and these pixels are basically used so that our app looks the similar in each and every device and is independent of the pixel density of that particular device. So in this tutorial our main purpose would be to learn how we could convert the density independent pixels to pixels so that we could use the pixels in the set width method. So let's start with the tutorial. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to import some packages. So we type import android.content.res.resources, and we are going to need one more package. So we type import android.util.typedValue. Now if you don't understand for what purpose we have used these packages, then you simply hold on, you'll understand it later on. So now once you have added the imports, the next thing which we do is that we go right here, and the next thing which we want to do is that we want to now convert the density independent pixels to pixels. So but before that we are going to need to create the resource object, and the resource object is basically used in order to get the resources which are associated with our device. So we type resources, let's name the variable as r, and we type equals get resource. And this get resources method is actually used in order to get the resources which are associated with your device. Now the major thing which we are trying to achieve here is that we want to convert the DIPs to pixels. So in order to do that, we are going to need a set of methods, and the methods which we want to use is going to be the typed value dot apply dimension. So we type type value dot apply dimension, and this method is going to accept three parameters. The first parameter is going to be consisting of the unit which we are going to translate. The next parameter is going to be the number of units which we want to translate, and the third parameter is going to be the display matrix. So let's go ahead and add up the first parameter. So the first parameter is going to be the unit in which we want to convert. So we type typed value complex unit DIP, and that's what is going to be the first parameter. Now the next parameter is going to be the number of pixels which we want to translate. So let's say 200, and the third value is going to be the resource. So we type R, which is nothing but the object which we have created right over here, and then we use a method which is called as the get display matrix. So this get display matrix method is basically going to get the display, and it is going to use these three parameters in order to calculate the pixel value for us. Now once this is done, what we do is that we want to save this result into something, and this result is going to give us the actual pixel value which we want to use. Now in order to save it, we create a variable called pixels. So we type int, and let's name the pixel variable as px, and then we equate it to this. But the main issue in this is that this variable right here is going to accept integer value, so we need to use typecasting over here. So we type here int, and it is going to translate the value into integer for us. Now once this line of code is done, we have successfully converted the density independent pixels, which are 200 density independent pixels, and we have converted them into a pixel value. Now we could go ahead and use this pixel value in the setWidth method in order to set the width of this edit text right here. So in order to do that, we use the edit text name, which is nothing but the username, then we give a dot operator, and then we use the setWidth method. So we type setWidth, and inside it we pass on the value of pixels. So we type px into the parameter section, and once we are done with this, we simply save the code. And now in order to check if our application performs correctly, we run it on the emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running onto the emulator, and as you could see, we have successfully increased the size of the edit text, and as you could see, we have successfully converted the density independent pixels value to the pixels value, and as a result we are able to see the change in width of the edit text box. So that's it for this tutorial, and in this tutorial we have learned how we could convert the density independent pixel value into the pixel value. Now we will also understand the basic intention of converting the density independent pixels to pixels. So basically what happens is that the setWidth method which we have used in this application or in this tutorial is basically going to accept only the pixel values, and the thing is that the problem with using the pixel value is if you use pixel values, then your application layout is going to change from device to device, and that is because different devices have different number of pixels onto their screen. Now in order to avoid that issue, what we have done is that we have used the density independent pixels, which are also called as DIPs. So as the name signifies, DIPs or density independent pixels are independent of the density of your phone. So for example, if your phone is densely populated with pixels, or if it is not densely populated or it is less populated, it is not going to make much difference, and your layout is going to stay consistent on each and every device. So that's why we convert the density independent pixels into pixels, so that we could use them and our interface stays the same on any of the device. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll be learning something about the grid layout. Now in the previous few tutorials we have learned how you could create the user interface by using Java, and now in the upcoming tutorials we'll be learning about how we could create the layout using the grid layout. So basically a grid layout is nothing but it is a type of layout in which we have a number of rows and number of columns, and we use these rows and columns in order to place the widgets right here. So in this tutorial what I have done is that I have opened up a new project and I have named it my application 2 or my app 2, and what I have done is that I have deleted each and every element which is present onto the screen so as to make it simple to understand the grid layout. Now once you are done with setting up your project and deleting all the elements on your layout, the next thing which you want to do is that you want to add the grid layout to your interface. So in order to add the grid layout, we simply go under this layouts tab and then select grid layout, and we just drag this and drop it over here. So as you could see, we have the grid layout which spans the entire activity, or it spans the entire screen of our phone. Now let's say we want to make this grid layout to wrap around the widgets. So for wrapping this layout we use this button right here. So this thing right here is used to wrap the content of the layout horizontally. So if I click this, it is going to wrap the content horizontally, and this button right here is used in order to wrap content vertically. So when I click it, as you could see that the grid layout is now wrapping the content horizontally and vertically, and as this grid layout has no content, the grid layout is spanning a small piece of area right here. So now let's go ahead and add some widgets to this layout. So the first widget we are going to add to this layout is going to be a button. So we simply select this button, we go inside here, and when we go inside the layout, as you could see that the widget is going to be placed at row 0 and column 0. So when I drop it over here, as you could see, a new button pops up, and now our grid layout is wrapping up the button which we have just added. Now you might also have noticed the green bars right here and here. So these are basically used in order to represent the row and column. So this bar right here is going to represent the set of columns, and this bar right here is going to represent a set of rows. Now in this case we are using a combination of row and column which is 0 0. Now let's go ahead and name this button something. So we click on the button, go to properties, and inside the property we want to change the text property. So let's say we name this button as center. So we type center, and as you could see the size of our button has changed. Now let's go ahead and add one more button to this layout. So we select the button, and let's say we want to place it to the left hand side of the center button. So we go ahead here and drop it over here. So as you could see, we have added the new button, and now let's name this button as left, as it is placed to the left. So we go here and we change the text to left. So as you could see, we now have two buttons. So you could notice that one more green bar has been increased over here, and that is because we have added an additional column to our layout. Now let's add one more button to this, and now let's add it to the right hand side of center. So as you could see, we have our new button, and let's name this as right. So we change the text here to right. So now as you could see, we have one row and three columns. Now let's say we want to add one more widget to the layout. So let's say we want to add one more button. So we drag the button, come over here and just drop it right over here. So as you could see that one more button or one more widget has been added, and we have noticed the change in the number of rows. And also you could use this green bars to entirely shift the rows. So for example, if I select this and if I drag it and drop it down here, you could see that the layout changes. So you could basically select an entire row or an entire column, and you could just drag it and drop it somewhere else. And one more thing which I wanted to mention is that as we are using a grid layout and it is just wrapping up the content, so if we select another button and if we drop it somewhere over here, so it is not going to laid on the grid layout, and that is because our grid layout is only present in this area right here. So in order to add a widget to a grid layout, make sure that you enter inside the layout area. So for example, this right here is the layout area which is specified by a yellow border. So if we drag a button and drop it over here, it is not going to be present in our grid layout. And also one more thing which I wanted to mention here is that if you want a particular button to span the entire row, then you could do so by just dragging the button and dropping it like this. Now in this case we have increased the span. Now once this is done, the next thing which we do is we select this edge, then we drag it up till the point where we want, and then we could just drop it over here. And you could also do the same with spanning the button to a particular column. So that's basically an overview of how a grid layout could be used in order to design the user interface. So the grid layout is basically used when we have number of text boxes or buttons onto our interface, so that we could align them properly in a particular grid in a row and column fashion. So that's it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be learning how we could handle events such as button clicks, and we are also going to learn about the action listener in the upcoming tutorials. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.